All right, we're gonna laugh at the stupidity of movie critics.
Yeah.
I have long avoided this subject. I've avoided Lord of the Rings because I'll be completely honest. I've seen the movies. I think I read half of the first book and just gave up before the movies were made.
Right.
I tried to read the books. I am ambivalent. I understand that these writings are considered great and amazing works of art.
Yeah.
I
Literature,
can respect
yeah.
its true literature. Tolkien is revered by just about everyone. He has like foundations named after him, and he's going to go down in history.
I just want to let you know that the reason that he wrote The Lord of the Rings was because this language nerd just wanted to develop a language. That's pretty much the whole reason.
That's a beautiful thing.
I know. It's
That's
great.
amazing.
Good for him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
So when all of this stuff started coming out, so for context, there is Amazon likely in the midst of like a money laundering scheme. Okay, that's a joke.
Yeah.
That's a joke. They dumped $1 billion with a B, into a Lord of the Rings television show called the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And the trailer was the most basic, average. It could have been made by any studio, and it certainly didn't have I think they said this part of the series was like $250 million. I don't know where the $250 million, if this went back into Bill Gates or into Jeff Bezos' pocket clean and laundered or something,
Seriously?
but I don't know where this money went. But it looked very bland and it looked very average. And the internet erupted as people got angry because they race and gender swapped characters. Stuff that, I mean, this is all based on Old English folklore, right? Or stuff from European folklore. And people took issue with that. And the internet hated it. And I thought to myself, I'm so glad I don't care about this.
Right. I'm glad that I don't care deeply about it either, because
Yes.
it does look like they're butchering it. I appreciated what Tolkien did. I never really got into it, but to me, this whole show just looks like an ESG for Amazon.
Yes.
That's basically what I
Yes.
came up with.
And to me, I'm just like, I knew as soon as this was announced, I said, this is going to fail. Lord of the Rings came out at a unique time in the film industry that that movie would never be allowed to be made the way it was today.
Yeah.
It would,
What about it makes you think that?
everyone's white.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because of the story told. That's
Right.
the,
Peter
the
Jackson
story they
was trying
told
to adhere to
the source material.
books, yeah.
Source material is no longer relevant. Source material is just a vehicle for agenda most of the time, not all of the time. But and I'm one of those. Me and Tim are both in the same boat. Like race swaps doesn't
really
bother
care,
me.
right.
If I don't have a strong connection to the source material, it doesn't bother me as long as they don't. My issue with it is when they start bragging about it and acting as if they're doing humanity a favor by swapping a race and just giving somebody sloppy seconds of something that wasn't theirs,
Right,
instead of just creating beautiful new characters that empower them within the context of that race. If the race is important, create a new character based around, like, I still ask, I said, why the hell hasn't there been a Static Shock movie yet?
Yeah.
I don't need them to race and gender swap Superman or Batman. I need them to just make a Static Shock movie. Or,
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
or they're making Blade again. But then again, Blade without Wesley Snipes just makes me sad.
It's not the same, yeah.
Is, as good of an actor as Mahershala Ali is. But so this is Den of Geek author Andrew Blair recently, and what's sad about this is I actually use Den of Geek as a lot of our reference points for like our Superman and Lois.
That's fine.
They have good reviews
Sure.
for stuff. Andrew Blair recently penned a screen comparing the Lord of the Rings of Power critics to mass murderers.
I think he meant to say screed. This whole article, it just made me furious reading it. The writing is not the best.
Oh, I love John F. Trent too. I try to not. I admit my bias that like when it's a site that I like, I tend to ignore the
Forgive
mistakes.
it, yeah.
When it's like the Daily Mail and I'm reading this one the other day, I'm like calling out all. I'm like,
They make lots of mistakes
so
in the Daily Mail.
Yeah, this is. I mean we could have a whole conversation about where journalism suffers from the need of the news cycle being endless now.
Yeah, you gotta be
Like
fast.
these guys are these guys are writing 5 articles a day.
Yeah,
like
I know. It's crazy.
So it says, not only did Blair compare critics to mass murderers, he implied that they are racist and also attacks Tolkien for his depiction of dwarves.
That's a lot.
This is a projection.
Oh, yeah.
This is, in my opinion, this is like we were talking earlier about who are you to ascribe motives to me? This is them, their own bias and their own projection. I call it weapons grade projection. This is their own issues that have come up in their lives, being latched onto deeply, something that they happen to be involved or care about, but they're looking into something that isn't there.
Right, exactly. Well, the thing is that they're only able to look at it through their own eyes, and everyone only looks at the world through their own eyes.
Representation matters because they can't imagine looking at something through the lens of somebody else's world because they feel like they wouldn't be able to understand. I don't know if if they actually believe that. Like, certainly people tell me a lot about what my life is like, looking like I do, but nobody else can understand what their life is like.
Exactly.
Which I take issue with.
Right. I feel like they're unempathetic and they're actually not able to view the world through anyone else's perspective. But for them to realize that would require a great deal of self-reflection, which
introspection.
I don't think they have. They don't really that.
And it's also, I mean, a lot of it's textbook narcissism.
Yes, 100%.
So it says, he begins his article implying critics of the show are racist, writing, in response to the trailer for Amazon's new Lord of the Rings series, there has been a negative reaction based on the fact that not everyone in the series is a white man.
Okay.
I love it when they like dumb down and it's like the opposite of steel manning. It's like worse than a straw man.
Yes.
It's worse than a straw man argument.
I'd like to see examples of someone who's upset because not everyone's a white man.
It would be phrased in it would be so different. Like, it's not that, it's that it's not accurate to the work.
Right.
That happens to be
That
a characteristics
would be
of
correct.
it.
Yeah.
So it says, and like I said, this doesn't bother, like, for me, it doesn't bother me, but like certain things, like we were going to watch, or Miracle wanted to watch Vikings Valhalla, and I saw some reviews that said like they race and gender swapped characters of Norwegian descent.
You can't do that.
Basically, but I don't know. But just reading it, I'm just like, I'm out. Because then if I'm lucky enough to get 10 minutes into the show before something like that happens, if they can catch me in that first 10 minutes, I will forgive a lot.
Right.
But if I read it beforehand, it poisons it for me, and then I can't get into it. So I actually have to avoid a lot of media to allow myself to start watching before I pass that judgment, because I just can't get over it.
Yeah.
It's why I don't read celebrities' opinions on politics. It's why I don't go on Twitter, because I love a lot of actors' work, and I don't want to be thinking about how much they hate people.
It does ruin things.
It does.
Yeah,
So
it really does.
I make the choice to be blissfully ignorant about
That's how you separate the art from
because
the
it
artist.
doesn't affect as long as it doesn't affect my work. I'm not commenting on most of that stuff. Like, we don't do a lot of Twitter topics here.
Good.
I try to stay away from outrage. Like, this is as close to outrage bait as we're going to get on here, just because of and I don't want to take it as, oh, these people are so stupid. I just want to laugh at the absurdity of the comparison and the hyperbole of all these people. Like, where do we go from here? Let's compare them to mass murderers.
Oh my gosh.
So it says, this is patently false, as there have been plenty of criticisms of the white male characters in the show, such as Elrond. As an example, the OneRing.com took issue with the addition of the new forbidden romances and the description of Elrond as a canny young architect and politician. And the criticism hasn't just been about the characters, as the OneRing.com has seen above. Also takes issue with compressing the storyline. That I could see being like, there's nothing that a person should be angry about them caring about that. That's just story critique.
Right, exactly.
Like, you're compressing a lot of material into a very short period of time, and they don't feel like you're going to do it justice.
Exactly.
And just some guy who's a fantastic YouTuber. I haven't watched, I just don't get a chance to watch a lot of YouTube right now. He has dozens of really good videos, and he's very insightful. He's like basically a Lord of the Rings scholar.
Oh, interesting.
He's very knowledgeable at Lord of the Rings. A YouTuber, just some guy, took issue with the show's compressed timeline, stating that in a recent video, if you do that, you completely jack up the lore. The amount of time that passes is part of the narrative. You can get away with this in The Lord of the Rings because Frodo's 17-year time jump would nuke any urgency and danger being built. If the One Ring is the most dangerous thing ever, you can't just go 17 years later and then have Frodo sit for another several months pussyfooting around when he knows Sauron knows where the ring is. That doesn't work on film. So he's actually, like, if I was to critique him, is to say that he's looking at it from a very, very detailed perspective. And most of these things aren't made with that. Details are paid homage to, but overall story is they're looking for normie approval. They're not looking for the approval of that doesn't make him wrong. Right. In fact, he's right. But I'm just saying the truth of the matter is that, unfortunately, this isn't made for ridiculous Lord of the Rings fans. It's made for normies.
True.
With most of these things.
Yeah, well, so one of the big appealing factors about The Lord of the Rings, and one of the things I thought Peter Jackson did really well with the movies that he did, was that he conveyed the idea and the feeling of so much passage of time in a very relatively short time.
Walking, lots of
lots of walking,
lots of walk and talk.
Yep.
So with the creation of the Rings of Power, the whole point is that Sauron took his time. He tricks the elves, teaching them how to make lesser rings before crafting the 16. He explains, like I said, I don't know any of this. Like, this isn't all relevant to me.
It's detail.
So we'll go to, it says, so where's Blair's okay. On top of this, many of the criticisms of
Galadriel?
I always forget that one, is the show is trying to make her more masculine by making her a frontline soldier and warrior as well as the commander of the northern armies. I mean, back then, women wouldn't have been in... I mean, this is fictional, so women wouldn't have been in combat, and this is always one of those things where I like to... Whenever we cover a show that does a strong female character well, meaning like when we covered Reacher, there is a female cop in the show, but she cannot just beat up 6 dudes at once. She has to use a gun.
Right.
Okay, that's logical. It makes perfect sense. In stuff like this, and I don't want to get too heavily into the lore because then I'll sound stupid because it's not my thing.
I just don't know enough.
It's about the ridiculousness of these comments. It says, so it's already crystal clear that Blair is writing his argument from a point of bad faith while also trying to imply that critics of the show are racist. It says the goddess is the divine feminine. This power works in harmony with the divine masculine. Evil seeks to destroy in the feminine because it's nurturing and essential. Don't look for Amazons. How do you pronounce that one? Galadriel. To be very nurturing. So Twitter. Oh, so that was this Twitter user said this here. It says, but the article already gets progressively worse after implying critics are racist. He then goes after Tolkien, implying he's anti-Semitic for his depiction of dwarves. They had the same thing about J.K. Rowling about making the Gringotts elves, the Gringotts goblins. They were like that's Jewish. Like they're implying that they're Jewish.
To be fair, their depiction in the movie was really kind of weird. Suspicious.
It's like, but I wonder how much of that is like how much at that time in a world that is far less sensitive than it is now. Did they just look up elves and look at different depictions of elves in history through various forms of fiction and do it based on like I have a hard time ascribing motive to people for creating art in this context, right? They created a beautiful movie that if a person has never read a political article, didn't know anything about this type of world that we kind of inhabit daily due to our work, if they hadn't read anything, all they would see is a beautiful depiction of a magical creature in a world that is, so that undertone, that context, that's really not projection, but it's on the person who sees it. It's in the eye of the beholder.
It absolutely is. This is what I would call a dog whistle because when I watched that movie, that never occurred to me. You know who would occur to you is an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
And I'm not. So I was like, oh, whatever.
Somebody who has it on the brain.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this has happened now in a society that has been so racialized in a lot of the things that get talked about. When you watch movies, we talked about during the Batman, how like they made all the bad guys were white. In all of the incorruptible politician and James Gordon. Like, does that matter to me? No, but I know that they were thinking it when they did it. It was not by accident.
Oh yeah, no, definitely
in the
not.
past, I would have believed that it was not intentional. Nowadays, I don't give them that same
benefit of the doubt.
I don't give them that same benefit of the doubt because in a world as on the brink sometimes as it is, and when these companies are on the verge of getting canceled for anything or criticized about any day, they have to be very artful about how they create this stuff. And I don't believe for a second that when they can create detailed sets and Easter eggs that call back to various iterations of the fiction, I don't believe for a second that any decision like that just happened by accident.
Yeah, there are no accidents.
So maybe that's what it was in this movie, but it was a different time.
True.
So I don't know if that set designer and the person who designed those creatures in that movie, I don't know if they were thinking like that.
When did that one come out? Do you remember?
The first movie came out in 2001, I believe.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
A long time ago.
Wow,
so she's also one of the great uncancellables. They can cancel her all they want, doesn't matter.
Good for
Like
her.
I was at, well, no, she threw Johnny Depp under the bus, so I take issue with her in certain.
Yeah. Well, but she's allowed to have her own opinions at the same time.
But she supported him through the first two movies, and then it got too much, and then I fully support her right to have her opinions on whatever the stuff that people are mad at her about. But her backing down on him, I took issue with that.
I like that.
So, like I said, I like that Kanye didn't back down.
Right.
Whether, just, I support the idea, or I love the idea that people really do stick by people, I guess.
Right.
That's like a fantasy of mine that people will actually do that.
Yeah.
So I just, we don't even need to go through more of this. It's just ridiculous that they compared them to mass murderers.
Right.
It's
That's insanity.
Yes. It says, so I actually, it says, interestingly, Blair knows he's personally attacking Tolkien, but he attempts to justify it by writing, some people regard pointing this out as a personal attack. I think they're referring to his depiction of equating dwarves to Jews.
Right.
So it says, Blair writes, despite Tolkien's vehement anti-racism, there is issue with his mythology. Was he anti-racist? Was Tolkien anti-racist?
Well, he wrote about, so he was alive during, I think, World War II, and he wrote to his son or friend about how if the Germans are going to treat Jews in this way, we should be able to treat Germans the way they treat Jews.
Yeah.
Which we know that's unacceptable.
That's textbook Ibram
Right.
Kendi. Yeah.
So he's not being overtly, he's clearly not an anti-Semite in the way that he approaches Nazi Germany, actual Nazis.
Some people regard pointing this out as, it says Blair writes, despite Tolkien's vehement anti-racism, there are issues with his mythology. His equating the dwarves with Jews, including linguistically, was intended positively as a representation of dispossessed people, but he actually described them their tremendous love of the artifact in a 1965 BBC interview, which is a common anti-Semitic trope. I've never heard of that.
He's just reading too much into it.
So it
sounds like
people just don't want to have fun anymore.
They don't.
Yeah.
Fun is canceled.
Yeah.
You have to be. I think a lot of that's the product of living in a digital world now. People are more sad than they've ever been in that respect. Like the more time you spend on your phone, the more time you spend digitally, the less happy you are. Which is why I think things like the metaverse are a terrible idea.
Really bad idea. Yeah.
Interesting. Blair knows he's personally attacking Tolkien, but attempts to justify it by writing, some people regard pointing this out as a personal attack, an attempt to stop them from enjoying something they love. As with fandom, ignoring the negatives of something doesn't stop them from being president. They're just joyless, man.
I just wonder, what do they like to do for fun or as a hobby?
This is
their
what they
hobby.
do.
Yeah.
People, I tend to find that
Other than this, like, what's
They have
another
nothing
thing?
else. They're online
God.
all the time. This is what they came up with.
I tend to find that people who are very hypercritical of certain, like where they critique art, tend to be very like that's what they do. It's very different. I almost give like a lot of these people more leeway if they actually were to do this by video or create something to make their critique.
Right.
Whereas just writing it, I see as just if you're just tweeting this.
You're a coward, Brett says.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that that's actually the.
No, I'm saying that.
What I'm saying is that there's like this inherent like people that create. I don't spend any time reading comments. I don't spend any time responding to people who make other stuff. I feel like people who have that creative drive tend to be that way. They don't tear down, at least not publicly. Maybe they do in private, but they don't share that type of critique, that need to critique other people's, because they know how vulnerable you have to make yourself by creating.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right.
No, that makes sense. I just don't know, because like I wonder how the future is going to be like for movies and TV shows, even books. How's the creativity going to be? Is it all going to be cookie cutter? Where
It's
all the
already
same?
going that way.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately.
I mean, you're going to have to do what you've been doing, and that's going to Japan.
Oh yeah, I'm like looking at more articles. So there's more things out. Like they just I already sent it to you, so maybe we might talk about it tomorrow for Podluck. It's like another Pokemon exhibition thing that they opened.
You'll have to look to anime, to manga, to these industries that are not under the thumb of American.
Unapologetic.
They don't care about these things. They see political correctness as a hindrance to art, as a hindrance to creation, which is
Correct.
absolutely true.
Well,
So-
like they tried to like include like more black people because people were complaining there's not enough black characters, but they do have it. Like my favorite anime, Bleach, had like one of their main characters was a black Latino, and like people glaze over him. Or another favorite anime of mine, it's called Durara. So it's like an onomatopoeia for like basically
So
like
glad I didn't have to pronounce that in an article.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time we do an article, I'm like, I start reading the names, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna screw,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Halfway
screw all
through.
this up.
Mhm.
I feel horrible because like
Yeah.
that's another one of those things that I get annoyed with is when people like ascribe like you're being mean by not pronouncing their last name or their name correctly. I'm like, my last name is nobody pronounces my
Yeah,
last name
yeah, I
properly.
know.
I don't
It's
think
bad.
they're bad people for not
Right.
pronouncing it
Right.
correctly.
Well, like for that one, there's like another black character that was really OP and everybody loved him.
Mhm.
But like I don't know, they tried to like they made an anime series on Netflix that's called April in something. Basically one of the main characters was a black girl, but for me, I feel like they don't care. They're like, just let me write a story.
Yep.
I don't care. Do you want a purple man? Let's go.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Mhm.
Exactly. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.